Georgetown, alongside the man, the myth, the jingle to my bells, Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
All I have to say about that is I am jingling all the way. As you can see, I am exceedingly festive.
You do need to just lift up a little bit so that we can see the festive T-shirt. Look at that
T-shirt. It says
that.
"Merry Christmas, motherfucker." Which I think we've all wanted. If anyone's visited the shopping center recently, that's something we've wanted to say quite regularly. As the man opposite me works in a shopping center, I'm sure he feels like saying it to a random assortment of people on any given
Not a
day.
random assortment. It is a blanket everyone.
Who has been the most annoying Christmas customer you've dealt with so far this season?
So I have had multiple people coming in. So like, yeah, I've been told to buy a video game for my nephew. Okay. What should I get him? How old are they? What do they like? What console are they playing on? Oh, I don't know. Do you see how I might have a problem suggesting things to you if you don't give me any information? But that's your job. I'm like, yes, but do you want me to literally just pick a random game off the shelf and go, this one? No, that didn't help me. It's like, but there you see my problem then, right? No. Oh, okay. You know what TV shows they like? No, don't really talk to him.
I think we all know the obvious solution that George is missing here, and I'm about to share it with you all.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Now choose a club. You have chosen. May I suggest a putter? 3 wood. Now enter the force of your swing. I suggest feather touch. You have a power drive. Now push 7, 8, 7 to swing. Ball is in. Parking lot. Would you like to play again? You have selected no. Well,
there you go. That is the obvious solution to anyone. The League Cover Loading Challenge is the answer to all our questions. Life, the universe, and everything. You could just sell him something random and go, this game, everyone loves this game.
Well, I did have, for Pokemon nerds out there, I did have someone who came in asking for a particular Pokemon plushie. It's a Scorbunny, which is a fire-type bunny, essentially. And I couldn't find it straight away, but I could find a plushie of a Ditto. And I just lifted it up and go, here you go. And looked at me and said, that's not it. So I'm like, it could be.
Did you try your old Jedi mind trick? This isn't the Pokemon you're looking for. He can go about his business. We have a loaded show. We're going to be talking, of course, about this week's chain movie, The Book of Henry, chosen by the great man himself. I'm going to have a quick chat about a couple of the new shows you can find on Disney Plus, which you would not expect to find on Disney Plus. Chippendales and Fleischman's in Trouble. And I think you've got some video game news for us this week.
Well, I've just got a little bit of my final thoughts on God of War before I keep on just talking about it forever, because it's probably going to take me forever to finish. I'm going to talk a little bit about the finale of season 1 for The Peripheral, and then I have gone trying it again. I am a willing person of being tortured. I'm trying another Disney Plus show, Willow. And because it is the season to torture myself with Christmas music 24/7 at work, including Alvin and the Chipmunks' Christmas song, there's worse ones on there, trust me. I decided to experience Apple TV's Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds musical Christmas movie, Spirited. So thoughts on that later.
Initially, when we were talking off air, George told me he was going to talk about Spirited Away. And I thought to myself, is there something particularly Christmassy about this Miyazaki film? No, he meant
Did you realize that
Spirited.
happens at Christmas?
I have not seen it, so I wouldn't know. Shall we dive into the Book of Henry and open the first chapter?
Yes. So,
why did you choose this film? What was your logic here? Because it's kind of an obscure one.
That's part of the reason why I chose it, because it is a somewhat obscure one, and also because we have been very fortunate overall for the high quality of movies that we've been picking, in spite of never having actually watched any of these movies or only seen them once or something like that. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try a left field option, not rated high on IMDb or Metacritic. And yet it's got some talent in the form of Naomi Watts, who is our connective tissue from Birdman. Directed by Colin Trevorrow, who is now very much a blockbuster movie maker with the Jurassic World movies behind him. But he had his indie start with Safety Not Guaranteed. And so I thought, okay, you know what? Let's give this a try. He's been very average to serviceable for the Jurassic World franchise. Let's see what he does with a smaller, more intimate project. That was my thought process behind this. My expectation was that I was not going to like this movie, but I was willing to give it a try just in case.
It was a hidden gem. They do come up from time to time. We found a few weeks ago when we talked about the Pawnbroker, which was a slightly older film, but that's not one that's commonly known, but it was very good. So, with instructions from her genius son's carefully crafted notebook, a single mother sets out to rescue a young girl from the hands of her abusive stepfather. As you noted, written by Colin Trevorrow, writer Greg Hurwitz, starring the Naomi Watts, one of Australia's greatest exports, Jaden Martell, who I think was in one of the It movies.
Yep.
Jacob Tremblay, Sarah Silverman, Dean Norris, best known for Breaking Bad. Lee Pace, probably best known for Guardians of the Galaxy, but also *Halt and Catch Fire*. If you yes, he's in The Hobbit, wasn't he? Maddie Ziegler, best known for being Sia's muse and having a very weird relationship with Sia. Bobby Moynihan, Geraldine Hughes from Rocky Balboa fame. I thought I recognized her. She was in that Rocky movie that didn't have wasn't one of the Creed movies. So an interesting little cast. And you're right, it doesn't have a great rating. It's got a 31 Metascore, 6.6 IMDb score. And may I just note that 6.6 is massively undeserved. This film is a stinking pile of shit.
Oh, but come on, you did point out on Facebook notifications it's got one of the best lines ever. To turn this movie straight into a comedy.
I'm gonna have to remember what it was now. I'm gonna have to go back and check.
Oh, come on! It was something I can't remember the exact line, but we're not going to kill the police commissioner.
We're not going to kill the local police commissioner or something. I said it again. Here's the problem with this film for me. I don't know what it is because I don't think it knows what it is.
Correct.
I think if you look in the IMDb trivia, it talks about how it started out as the script had been kicking around for 10 years before it was made. Here we are, movie quote of the year. We are not killing the police commissioner, and that is final.
Yep.
So it started out life. The script started out life as a black comedy. It came into the hands of Colin Trevorrow, who was interested in making it, but he didn't want to make a black comedy. He made whatever this is instead. But it's still the script. Maybe he forgot to take out the parts of the script that were black comedy because it's kind of parts of you like, is this supposed to be funny?
Yeah.
Because if it is, That's a bit weird because it's not really being played like a comedy. And the rest of it's not playing like a comedy, but like, moments will play as comedy. That line, "We are not killing the police commissioner, and that's final," could be a really killer line, but they didn't deliver it right.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got the trailer playing just to the side there as well. But it's such a weird hodgepodge. It's like it's full of so many cliches, like the smart genius kid who doesn't quite fit in, but at the same time isn't particularly persecuted for his brilliance. The fact that he is the adult in the parent-child relationship with Susan. The fact that spoilers, I guess, he dies from a brain hemorrhage. It's like, well, that's ticking a lot of typical boxes. But at the same time, it then has, the Sarah Silverman's character we just saw there, who seems to be a friendly alcoholic friend of Naomi Watts' character. And the Rube Goldberg machine kind of illustrations that keep happening throughout the whole thing. It's like, what are you trying to be? Because it's not particularly a thriller, which the trailer tries to
That's
point
as close as what you'll be expecting from a trailer.
Yeah.
But then again, even a trailer made it look schizophrenic.
Yeah.
I mean, so as you know, you've nailed it. But it's full of cliches, full of tropes.
Yeah.
The kid who's smarter than any adult in a film. But it starts out with we meet Henry. He's a really, really smart kid, and he realizes he's really smart. And all the adults realize he's really smart, but he doesn't decide to go ahead and like advance him to go into a gifted school because reasons. Because the movie needs to happen. But like we meet the police commissioner lives next door to him and his mother. He's friends with the daughter of a police commissioner, played by Maddie Ziegler. Maddie Ziegler, who in this film proves once and for all why she is as a dancer, as an actor, she's a much better dancer. She's a terrible actor, and she's got nothing to say in this film, and she's terrible. As you know, like Henry starts to pick up on some vibes that something not quite right is going down with his friend. What's the character's actual name? Christina next door. And he starts to keep he realizes he's going to die, I guess, at some point because he gets sick and starts to keep incredibly detailed plans and recordings of how his mother should handle the situation should he pass away. And it's some incredibly adult choices, like what kind of firearm to basically he outlines a plot for his mother to kill the police commissioner next door who's abusing his daughter Christina by going out and buying a sniper rifle and shooting him. And you're like, and it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like 1 minute, it's like a kind of a charming-ish childhood sort of comedy with sort of
almost sort of like what's
it kind of reminded me of Explorers in parts, like we're at the spaceship.
It's almost like Explorers meets My Girl or something like that.
Yeah, but there's a charming. Then it's not. Then Henry dies. And all of a sudden, it's fucking Long Kiss Goodnight, a great non-Christmas film. We could be hearing more about them later on. And maybe it would have been more fun if Naomi Watts had woken up one morning and actually it'd been like, what was that Nobody film? One where...
with Bob Odenkirk?
Bob Odenkirk, who turns out he's actually an assassin and...
Yeah.
That would be fun. It could have been fun. I mean, that film was... See, that film kind of walked the line. It was kind of John Wick, but funnier.
Yeah.
They could have walked that line a little bit, but at moments, it's like, you look at... How the fuck does this kid know what sniper rifle to buy? I mean, I know it's the United States.
He listened to one conversation with a shady guy in the gun shop. That's all the information you need.
How very fortunate he was in the gun shop at the moment when that conversation took place.
Reasons.
It seems superfluous at the time. But he was there, and like he just seems to have this look, I get kids can be like, it's possible kids can be incredibly, intelligent, retain massive amounts of information at a young age. Like that's possible. But this kid seems to have a remarkable breadth of information related to, commando style assassination missions. Now, look, I'm not going to brag or anything, but I have played Sniper Elite 3 and 4 and finished them both. So that kind of makes me a bit of an expert in the field when it comes to sniping.
You can talk professionally. That's okay.
As professionally, I mean, I'm kind of up there.
You're an American Sniper.
I saw American Sniper at least once, and once and a half, like once half time on a plane. The sound was off, but I think I got the gist of it. So I think that makes us snipers, frankly, as far as this film's concerned. It's ridiculous that this kid knows all this shit about how to kill his neighbor, and the idea that his mother would go, well, this book written by my dying child with a inoperable brain tumor recommends killing my neighbor.
See, now here's where I think it should have gone a different route than what it did, because the first portion up until his death, it's like, okay, you've got a basic theme and kind of genre playground that you're sticking to. That's okay. If they had just gone, okay, left field, Henry dies, and he, in his like the brain aneurysm or whatever it is, the hematoma or whatever they actually decide is the reason for him dying, he possesses his mum. And it's a little bit like All of Me, the classic Steve Martin comedy movie where he gets possessed by another soul, and she's literally having conversations with him, and he's sometimes taking over her body, and he wants to go through this and kill, and then it just goes full on black comedy. That would have explained a lot of the conversation.
So what you're sort of recommending is sort of Rambo meets Soul. Yeah, I'd watch that. But that's the kind of that would be good. I would enjoy that. If you get Trent Reznor in to do the soundtrack again, that would work out well. I think. I'm not sure Pixar would be interested. That's the kind of hodgepodge thing this film. Look at the poster of this film. Look, I'm going to share my screen here for a second. I'm going to bring up the poster of this film. Just look at this poster. If you're on the show, if you're watching the live stream today or you're watching it later, podcast listeners, you can just Google it, I guess. Book of Henry's poster. What does this poster say to you this film's about? Does this poster say the second half of the film is about Naomi Watts trying to snipe a next door neighbor?
No.
It doesn't.
You know what? This looks like the perfect modern day representation of an 80s kids pseudo fantasy movie.
He does. That's exactly what it looks like. Like I said, like you see sort of explorers or something like that. Goonies-esque, vibe to the poster. Like it's kind of quirky and fun. I mean, it has a PG-13 rating. I should note that this is not an overtly violent film. No. But I mean,
suggestive topic, of course. Molestation of children, that's a hard one to go by. And maybe they put that a little...
It got a rating for thematic elements and brief, strong language. I love it, the sex and nudity section. None. There is no sex and nudity shown in this film. Sometimes Sheila wears low-cut tops that expose her cleavage. She chides a man for staring. Profanity. The word fuck is featured, but used infrequently. I like the fact that there's violence per trailer. If a man has a gun pointed at him, one might consider that an act of violence. And the fact that a small child suggested said act of violence, and his mother thought, good idea, let's do that. I mean, other radical ideas like, I don't know, getting a camera, filming said abuse,
There's even a moment where Susan, Naomi Watts' character, it seems to be watching the neighbor, the kid, and sitting there in the dark, and then she suddenly reacts as if, "Oh my god, I've seen something heinous!" Like, fucking Rear Window, just film it, do it, done. Take it to the newspaper,
stick it on fucking YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's I think if you factor it's kind of a plot hole, right? We don't actually, oh no, there's no solution. He's the police chief. No one can possibly take him down. He's too powerful. I will shoot him. That'll be a better solution. Like, and it's so convenient to the point where, he writes of his books, explaining what he recommends his mother does about killing their neighbor and helping Christina escape him. He also records a whole bunch of audio stuff for her iPod, I guess it is, if I recall correctly.
I think it's just like a dictaphone, like a classic old school dictaphone.
Doesn't she listen to it? I think she listens to it on her iPod or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember.
The time of this movie is kind of nebulous as well.
It is. It's not. He records always. It's the world's first murder podcast, I guess.
Listen along as we plan a killing.
This week on My First Murder, we are going to select our sniper rifle, and you're not going to believe which one we come down with. You're going to have to watch the whole episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, folks.
Clickbait for a murder show.
But it's all like, in every step of the way, he's like, he just happens to say exactly the right thing to react to what his mother is doing. Like, she shoots a target. Yay, well done, Mom. And I'm like,
and little bits like she walks away from the ATM. It's like, your other left, Mom. Like, okay, you're doing this to try and suggest that he is so smart and so good that he has already accounted for her every step all the way. But it doesn't really come across as that. It comes across as stupid. And so they should have done a possession, because then they could have had a legitimate back and forth. But at the same time, the realization, the final realization, she's there. She's got the sniper rifle. And he's sort of like saying, okay, breathe, don't relax, just relax, make sure you're doing this and take the shot. And then she has suddenly, after all of this that she's gone through, she suddenly remembers, I'm the adult. You're just a kid. It's like, wow, you really are a bad parent, aren't you? You really are.
It's at that point you had a moment about the ATM scene. That obviously to me says this is left over from the comedy.
Yeah.
Because if it had been played for laughs, that could have been funny.
Yeah.
I think a Zucker Brothers style comedy or something like that,
Yeah.
But I mean, and you can, of course, do a deadpan comedy.
Yes.
Look at something like Spinal Tap. I mean, it's a mockumentary, so it's a different kind of film. But everyone in that film takes everything 100% seriously.
Yeah.
And that's what's funny.
Yeah.
But this isn't doing that.
No.
So it's not doing a deadpan comedy. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe how you not, but it's obviously not. So that scene doesn't make any sense, because it's trying to play everything like it's a real. We're in the thriller section of a movie now.
Yeah.
So that scene doesn't make any sense. But if you're playing this film as a dumbass, wacky comedy, you will pay that, right? You go, oh, it's kind of silly, but it's kind of funny. But I think it's a perfect example where I think they've left the comedy in, but because they've taken the comedy out everywhere else, it doesn't work. And you're right, but her realization only at the last minute, after spending a couple of $1,000 on a sniper rifle and practicing with it for weeks and pointing it at her neighbor, who is a police person. And, I don't know if you know this. It's not a commonly known fact, and maybe it's a little bit too topical, but considering what's happened in Australia this week. But police, generally speaking, as a rule, don't like being shot.
Wait. They don't?
They don't. And yes, there's some bad taste, considering 2 police people were killed in Queensland yesterday. But It's quite aside from that. It's actually aside from that, putting the uncomfortable truth of what's happening in the real world aside. It's a really weird moment, and she doesn't actually have to shoot him to get him taken down. Like that, people arrive to arrest him because the principal makes a phone call. Now, if a principal makes a phone call, reports a police commissioner, that'll work. But if his next door neighbor says, "Hey, he's abusing his daughter," that ain't gonna cut it, folks.
And
so in the end, the entire premise of a film is undercut.
The other point of that element is the principal has been approached multiple times by Henry before his death about this activity that is happening in Christine's life. Susan goes and talks to her about it, like twice, I think. But nope. The nail in the coffin for, yes, I'm going to do something to save this child, is the girls dancing. That's the straw that broke the camel's back.
It's a song and dance number that does it every time. I believe before the next Congress starts in the United States, the January 6th Commission is going to invite Maddie Ziegler in to do a dance for the Republican members of the commission, just to convince them that they should, charge Trump and, just think about them, every mistake they've made in their life. And I'm fairly certain it will be effective. If you haven't picked it up already, I didn't like this film. This was a really, really hard watch. This was a long hour, 45 minutes. I don't know how this film got made. I don't know what they were thinking.
I can understand why this film got made. Because of the subject matter, because Colin Trevorrow's, he's a, regardless of whether you like his stuff or not, he's a reliable box office movie creator.
He's got the word Jurassic in the title.
But then at the same time, there's also not really any bad performances in this movie. It's just the movie and the fact that it's an utter mess. And like, it feels like a first draft as someone who's written the script and it's gone, yeah, I want a little bit of comedy in there. I want a bit of thriller. I don't know which one I'm going to settle on. I'll go back and decide which genre I want to really focus on.
Do it in the editing booth.
Yeah. And then they kind of forgot that step.
It kind of reminds me, I remember years ago, I saw a TV show called Detroit 187 that was going to be a comedy. And then somebody at the studio decided, we don't want a police comedy. We want a police drama. So they went in and re-edited the whole thing in the pilot in editing and turned it into a drama. So it can be done. But maybe I just forgot. Maybe Colin Trevorrow called in sick that day. And the editor they got in just thought, oh, this will do.
Yeah. It's just such a bizarre movie in its failings that I couldn't help but just go, oh, okay. Well, that happened, and I'm glad that it's over.
That's a good way of putting it. I agree with you. You are right. I don't think anyone's particularly terrible in this. Like, there's no, I mean, apart from Maddie Ziegler, who is abysmal. She is a terrible actor. Yes. And I did stop and consider taking us to the movie she's played, the autistic kid in this music. We're not going to watch music, but I did consider it just to see if it's as bad as everybody says it is. But everybody else, I feel like it's the problem here is the writing and the directing and the disconnect between the two. In the sense that the writer's done one thing and the director's done something else. A bit like if you go back to Natural Born Killers, where you had a Tarantino script and all of a sudden direction, and they just don't fit too well together. I mean, that film's much, much better than it is. Yeah. But it's not as good as most Tarantino films or Oliver Stone films because those two elements just don't seem to fit quite right together. Yeah. And these two, just this significantly more, do not work. Greg Hurwitz's script and Colin Trevorrow's direction seem to be at odds. This is a very odd film.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
No. But it has one saving grace. It is finished and we don't have to talk about it anymore. Where are we going to next, sir?
Now, this is important announcement time. We are going to break the chain. 1 week only. This chain has been going now for almost 3 years, and George has them all written down. Which you should post it. You should post it on the Facebook page just so people can.
I will do. I will work something out for this to.
But we aren't breaking your chain permanently, so rest assured, people. You can put your Glocks back in the cupboard, American friends. There's no need to revolt just yet. We will be returning to the chain in the new year.
Mm-hmm.
I think we haven't talked about this, but I don't think we're going to do a show in the week between Christmas and New Year's because he's busy and
he's busy and we don't want to.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a fair way of putting it. But we have a special treat for you next week. A very special treat. The first ever Armchair's Producers Christmas Spectacular. And it will be better than that piece of shit that James shout out for Disney Plus, I guarantee. We're going to do a Christmas special next week. There will be no chain movie for next week's show. We will be streaming it live like we always do. It'll be available to download for all you podcast people, all the Russian bots out there. We are going to focus on non-Christmas Christmas movies, though. So I know it's become a thing in the recent years is non-Christmas Christmas movies. Mm-hmm. And everyone's favorite non-Christmas Christmas movie, or the argument is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And the answer, of course, is yes, it is. And if you say differently, you're incorrect. But that would be a little bit obvious just to go, okay, we're going to do our favorite non-Christmas Christmas movies because it would be Die Hard because it's awesome. And George once literally asked Alan Rickman to do lines from the film with him, and he said no. Well, I think it might have been the peak of your life at some point.
It was that was a good like 18 months of my life right there.
But so we're going to do a couple of our favorite non-Christmas Christmas movies, and by saying favorite, I just mean two I've randomly selected because I thought they would sound good. We're going to be talking about Eyes Wide Shut, which of course famously, apparently, it has a Christmas tree in every shot. Maybe. I never checked, but I heard that. Of course, this is Stanley Kubrick's last movie, starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Famously controversial. I haven't seen it for probably since it came out, I think. So
yeah, I think so.
I'm going to be interested to see how it holds up 20 plus years later. So that's I mean it's controversial, but I think people would agree that it's a quality production. It's Stanley Kubrick. It's 7.5 on IMDb and 68 Metascore. So of course we are going to take from the sublime to the ridiculous. And our second non-Christmas Christmas movie is the 1985 Chuck Norris action spectacular Invasion USA, which means a spy army invades at Christmas time, which means it's a Christmas movie, people, a non-Christmas Christmas movie. So those will be. This has a 5.4 IMDb rating and a 29 Metascore, and of course, it's by the geniuses of the mark of quality in 80s film, Canon Films. The great minds behind such classics as Cyborg, The Masters of the Universe, and Superman 4. So it's going to be good. So those will be our non-Christmas Christmas films next week for our Christmas Spectacular. It might be a slightly shorter show, but it'll be our first ever. And if you like it, tell us, and maybe we'll do another one.
We'll make it a running thing. Every public holiday, a movie based on that.
But that means we do have a chain film to talk about for the new year. And I have it set up, ready to go. Our link will be, if I can just go back to, I can remember the actor's name. It is Tanya Pinkins, who plays Principal. The Principal, who is actually the hero of the film because she dobs in the bad guy. She is our link to our film, our first chain movie for next year. And I'm now going to play the trailer for the people lucky enough to see our live stream. You'll be able to hear it, podcast people. So
Not got any audio. This movie is terrible.
I will share it again, and we'll select audio and see if this is better. Sorry, people, not getting any audio. Podcast people, we'll start again.
There we go.
Because it's quite glorious, this sound.
I'm imagining it, and I know that it's still not bad enough.
I don't know if you're able to hear this, but this is some really bad 80s hip hop. This is a film called Beat Street, 1984. Beat Street from 1984.
Beat Street. So, how am I going to get out of this
beat? Well, you said you wanted some stuff that wasn't quite as good. And I think it's pretty safe to say that this film isn't very good. So Beat Street, made in 1984, an aspiring DJ from the South Bronx and his best friend, a promoter, tried to get into show business by exposing people to hip-hop music and culture. Ray Dawn Chong is our main star in this film. So, yeah, she was in stuff.
I'm looking at
Commando.
I'm looking at this list of people, and most of them don't even have photos.
I've made it. You might have to employ the Stephen Dorff rule, but I'm sure if it's Ray Dawn Chong, you have to use, and so be it. But I would draw your attention to one of the writers of his film, and Andrew Davis, the man who directed Under Siege and The Fugitive. So,
Ooh.
There's no way out of this.
Okay. All right. I'll allow it.
And this is available for rent on the YouTubes, on Google Play, and on Apple. So if you want to acquire it legally, that is how you do it.
Oh, I could follow the director, Stephen Hager. The head writer, Stephen Hager, to High Times Presents the 20th Cannabis Cup.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
The world's biggest party in Amsterdam, judging the world's top strains.
Right.
That's actually a documentary.
Yeah. I do documentaries. If they count, who knows? But anyway, this is an interesting.
Okay. Well, we've got time for us to build up the courage to watch Beat Street.
Could it be worse than the Book of Henry? I mean, really. I mean, it was pretty bad. Like, it's a different era of film.
Yes, that is an excuse.
He's saying that's not a good thing. He says that's not a good thing. No, before we move on with all the other bizzo in the show, I'm excited to hear what you made in the end of God of War, because it is the big game of the season.
It is, yeah. God of War, ladies and gentlemen, the PS5 big release. There's the long-awaited sequel to God of War from PlayStation 4. I've been talking a little bit about it on and off for the last couple of weeks because I've been slowly playing through a little bit more. And I figured I'd give my final little review of it in light of the Game Awards results that came out last week, where it was nominated for Game of the Year, but it lost out to Elden Ring.
Did you play any of Elden Ring?
I did, yes. And myself and Patrick, a friend of the show, we did have a good conversation about this, and we both agreed that Elden Ring is the better game overall because it does more for video games and opening them up to the market compared to God of War, which despite its beautiful graphics, despite its phenomenal storyline and really emotionally engaging story, it doesn't really do anything new or exciting with the game. It's very much your shake and bake PlayStation exclusive, frankly, where it's like, oh, we're going to have serious thematic tones, very realistic graphics, beautiful score, all of this stuff. But it's going to be, yeah, we don't know how to do interesting action. We're just going to throw bad guys at you. Oh, yeah, we've got a boss. Okay, we're going to make it so fucking easy for you to be able to work out how to kill this boss. Especially in a year where something like Elden Ring comes out, which is, in all descriptors, a Souls-born game where it is that grind and grind and grind, and the game will fight back and beat you and remind you that you are not good enough to play it. And yet, Elden Ring did something fantastic with its abilities. I've never really been a fan of those Dark Souls, Demon Souls games, but I'm still interested because it had more of that RPG element. It had a bit more of that. If you go to an area that's too high level for you, go away and grind and build yourself up, learn the mechanics. And Elden Ring, in a weird, twisted way, is almost like a rhythm game. Once you work out the rhythm and the cadence of a boss, if you can just keep moving and flowing with that same rhythm, you can work your way through them and beat them. There is a logic to it. Until a goat suddenly comes along from behind the camera and just kills you in one go, and you just like, fuck. But there was a level of learn the enemy to Elden Ring, which is completely missing from God of War. I do kind of understand the reason why they've done that, because you're playing the God of War, so you want to feel like a badass and just be able to mow through everyone, but it gets really fucking boring. Just, yep, there's definitely going to be a swarm of enemies that are coming at me, and it's definitely going to be button mash because I don't need to do anything else. And it's boring, and there's no real sense of dread or threat. It's the same problem in the Uncharted games, where the story is interesting and it's got that kind of Indiana Jones light comedy element to it. But every bad guy is just a bullet sponge, and it's like, okay, this is a war of attrition and boredom while you hide behind a thing and then you wait to get a good shot. It's boring. Same as Last of Us. The action, the fight sequences, they're boring because that's not the point of those games, realistically. They should just fucking get rid of them then.
So you're saying this is a little bit more writing on reputation and style over substance, maybe?
I would say so in many ways. The narrative behind it, and it won Best Narrative Game at the Game Awards, justifiably, as far as I've played so far. It's very good at eking out a good story, and for I can't remember the actor's name, Christopher something, who voices Kratos. He is fantastic, and the kid who plays Atreus is really good. He's just the right side of annoying, but mildly charming as a sidekick. It's not riding on the skirt tails of better games. It's just not. It knows exactly what it wants to do, and it does that. And it's like, okay, we're an action game. We kind of forgot that part in developing it. Let's just put a basic fight choreography sequence into this and make most of the interesting things just, oh, I now have to press the circle button, or I have to move the analog stick diagonally up to do this because that looks cool. They're forgetting that you can actually tell story through action, and they should actually stop and take a look at all the Sony studios should stop and take a look at some of the more recent action movies that have come out where fight sequences have been a part of the storytelling. You can think of, if you want to go very nuanced and stylized, you look at a movie like Hero, where they had those beautifully overly choreographed fight sequences of martial arts majesty, but they were shot and filmed to tell and inform on the story. And it makes sense as you're watching it. You see, oh, it's from this person's point of view, and we're revealing this information. It's possible to do. They're just being lazy and not doing it, which is a shame considering the amount of effort they're putting into how good it looks and how good the actual story is. But sadly, the story is all in cutscenes. It's everything else in between that is kind of boring. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, look, there's some runes there that are kind of vaguely pointing upwards. Yep, that's a wall I gotta climb. Oh, look at that. There's a glowing chest there that, strangely, no one has ever gone to look into. A glowing chest. No one. Wow, okay. Yep, I'll get my way there. Yep, what a surprise. It's hack silver. Great, rewarding. The actual game.
I'm hearing you're not really a big fan of this from what I'm hearing here. This is not, all I'm hearing is amazing, 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 but it sounds like you're not in love with this.
I'm not, and this is the kind of thing this is what makes me actually a little bit more interested in the forthcoming Last of Us series, because I didn't like the gameplay of The Last of Us, but I love the game. Love the story. So I'm wondering if maybe they've gone so far. Sony have invested the last 10 years almost in making themselves very much the mature gamer console with things like The Last of Us, Uncharted, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Spider-Man, Days Gone, all of these games that are sort of like, they're all high-profile games. They don't really do the indie thing much anymore unless it's a bizarre little odd piece like Stray. I kind of feel like, ironic as it may seem, Sony have not been able to make a good movie in a long time, and PlayStation have been able to make great movies with annoying gameplay in them. They kind of need to swap production companies. So I'm kind of now actually more interested, and I was wondering about Last of Us going, well, what's the point? They told the story. But now I'm thinking back on it after playing God of War, and it's going, you know what? The gameplay isn't actually that fun, and it doesn't actually inform on the story, the gameplay. Yes, you are that character, and it tries really hard to make you engage with it and take ownership of your character's actions and things like that. But for me, it didn't work. So as a movie, I wonder if I'm actually going to get more out of them. So I'm wondering if these movies and TV shows that they're developing for all of these projects are actually going to be the better option for these projects. Because I think God of War could be an interesting one.
Someone around here, I don't remember who, made a prediction a couple of years ago about video game movies being the new superhero movies. And so far, obviously, they've been incredibly close to the mark on that one. That one's a great prediction. Who could forget the success of Angry Birds? And, you know, I think the Emoji Movie counts as a video game movie. But if you can't make... Look, I didn't like The Last of Us. I thought it was boring. Maybe it's because the fact the gameplay was kind of lousy for me. But it's really craps on about how good the story is. Story. Oh my God, the story is so great. I will assume they're correct. So if you can't take the video game with arguably one of the greatest stories in video game history and turn that into a successful film, you should stop trying. Or just quit making films. Because it's one of the more frustrating things that the video game films you see made is that the games have great stories. And then they get the film and they just change all the story. They forget the story from the game, take the characters in the setting, and then make another story. I'm like, you know, like I don't get it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. I'm fascinated to see what the Fallout TV show is like, because there's a game that I really like, but the story's never really been the main attraction. The story's always been kind of shit, frankly. Wouldn't it be ironic if Fallout nailed the TV show and The Last of Us didn't?
It was so bizarre. But at the same time, for long-time listeners, it may sound like we want to have our cake and eat it. We're saying, oh, why do they keep on taking these properties from video games and changing them for movies? And now George is saying, oh, they just translate it to movies. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's on a game by game basis. Something like God of War, which is heavily narrative driven, they do a good story. Just recreate it, get rid of the crap gameplay, and you've got a better product. Something like Super Mario Brothers movies coming out next year. The first trailer and the new trailer recently came out, and it's looking pretty good, actually. But again, it's one of those ones which is aiming for a younger audience, for one thing. And Mario games, not exactly really ones that people play for the narrative. So there's a difference. There is a difference between what the intent of the game is versus the intent of the movie. And you can kind of get away with a little more when you're doing an animated fluff movie a la Minions or Angry Birds or something like that. So what I'm basically saying is shut up, everyone.
Shut up, crime.
Shut up.
I think it's time for our sponsor break.
I did just want to quickly do my final thoughts on the Peripheral Season 1.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go for it.
So Season 1 has finished, and my prediction was right. Jonathan Nolan is clearly making projects that I am not smart enough for, because it posits a lot of interesting things. They throw in some interesting characters and interesting developments, but he doesn't like answering questions. He just doesn't. And it's like, okay, I don't really care about coming back for a season 2. People are doing great performances. You've introduced some interesting characters, and there's some mildly interesting developments between characters happening. But I don't really care. Sorry. So it's disappointing. Started off great, and it just slowly got too up its own arse.
We rewatched Yellow Jackets this week because Michelle had never watched it, and I got remember we talked about it at the start of the year when I watched it. I liked it. But if we watched it again, I think that show has a serious case of lost syndrome. Intriguing premise, interesting story and characters, but they don't know where it goes from there. Do you think the Peripheral suffers from something similar?
I think so. I don't know, because it's based on the William Gibson book or book series or whatever. I don't know if they're more like Asimov's 3 Rules books or anything like that, where it's kind of short stories just popping in and out of this kind of pseudo cyberpunky world, or whatever. I don't know, but you've got sort of like this kind of time travel element in there. You've got different factions happening. It's like, okay, you've built an interesting world. You've got some interesting lore that you can really go into. Please answer some of our questions so that we have more faith going forwards again. You've got to reward. You can't just always just keep on going, all the time. Eventually, you just go, nah, fuck it. I don't want any more carrot. Get stuffed.
I think that the standout for me this year, I come back to, is Severance. I haven't seen the show stick the landing as hard as Severance did for a long time, in the sense that it didn't answer all the questions. I don't know if you've had a look at it yet. I can't remember if you were interested. I definitely should put it on your list. It's very good. But it actually stuck the landing because, well, it didn't answer all the questions that the show had been asking. What it did do was go, here's what season 2 is going to be. Here is some resolution to season 1, but the resolution of season 1 opens up new opportunities to explore in season 2. So you walked away feeling satisfied.
Yeah.
So I think this whole idea that you can just start with an intriguing premise, some A-grade actors and some nice special effects, and keep going, ooh, isn't this mysterious, for an entire season, and then go, the end of a season 1, go, who knows where it's going next? I don't know. You don't know. It's getting tiring.
Yeah. It's a bad habit that TV needs to kind of kick to the curb and have as just a one-off special treat from time to time.
Story resolution. You know what it is to me? Remember the X-Files in the 90s? Like, that's what the X-Files did for about 4 seasons. They gave us 4 seasons of blue balls of going, oh, mysterious shit. Are the aliens taking over the world? Is Mulder really crazy? And then you're like, after 4 seasons of it, you're like, you're never going to tell me, are you, Chris Carter?
Nope.
You don't know what's happening.
Nope.
You don't know what's happening next year. You've got no fucking clue what happens in this show 1 week to the next. I'm out. And that's not to say X-Files wasn't great TV for while it was made, but, you know, it's an early example, I think, of his sort of lazy TV, like where you can just keep making mysterious shit happen and asking questions, but never answering any of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a simple thing. You always have to reward your audience for coming back. That's the thing. No, it doesn't matter if you come out early on and say, "Oh, we've got a 5-year plan for this." What? Cool, but you've got to fucking answer some of the questions by the end of season 1, and you've got to posit new ones to tantalize us into the next season, so that we know, okay, yep, every season we are going to be rewarded by the end of it with answers to the questions that you are telling us to ask.
I'm questioning whether I should go back to it now.
I don't think you should.
I don't think. I feel like the answer is no.
Yeah.
Is it sponsor time? Should we get the sponsors?
It's sponsor time.
Sponsor.
Who is the sponsor of the week, my friend?
Sponsor this week is one and only Christmas.
Nebulous Christmas.
Yeah. We're not answering any questions on this show. We're here to ask questions. You're there to answer them, or YouTube is. So.
Sounds of Christmas. Do you want candy from Santa, little boy? Terrible. Terrible. Anyone who trusts Santa is just a fool. There's nothing like holidays.
Christmas spectacular for you folks. This is a taste of what you got next week. I think we're having some audio problems there, so I apologize to anyone who was watching and couldn't hear the commercials. I don't know what's going on this week. Usually you can hear them. But fit is stuff. Technology not playing nicely with us today.
Oh, well.
That's unusual on this show because obviously we're usually masters of our domain and extraordinarily professional, and nothing
100%
goes wrong. And we're fully prepared.
We are professionals.
For all eventuality. I'm sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face doing that one. I want to talk about some good TV now.
Yes, tell me, what is your good TV?
And we're going to go to Disney Plus's streaming service. This is apparently the most popular streaming service in the world now, I'm told.
But
I think
Disney Plus is a streaming service that we have used multiple times on this show and not enjoyed much of their content.
Indeed, well, fine productions like She-Hulk and Moon Knight, and they have some adult. It's interesting they have some interesting adult content in their Stars, I think it's called.
That's
channel on there. So earlier in the year, if you're a regular listener or viewer, you might have heard me talk about the Pammy and Tommy series, which I thought was pretty good. Who could forget Sebastian Stan's talking penis in that series? And that's probably reason enough to watch it, if nothing else. But two new shows have popped up in the last few weeks. I want to cover quickly because I haven't finished yet. So a bit like the series we just talked about, what was it called again? The Prophylactic, the Peripheral.
Prophylactic. I put this on and I travel through time.
That would be the series starring Sebastian Stan's talking penis. The Prophylactic.
Sounds like
the Peripheral.
That is superhero. I am the Prophylactic.
I am Mr. Prophylactic. It should be somebody in Mystery Man potentially. The Peripheral. We were kind of fans of it early on, but when we got to the end, obviously you just heard George tell us it's kind of shit. I didn't stick the landing. So I want to give a heads up at the start. Both these series are in flight. Maybe they won't stick the landing. But so far, we'll talk about the first one is Chippendales, or I believe in the States it's called Welcome to Chippendales. For some reason, been given a different name here. This is an 8-episode mini-series starring Kamal Nanjiani. The origin story of Soman Steve Banerjee, an Indian-American entrepreneur who started the stripper troupe Chippendales. And I am finding this series, incredibly enjoyable, but also fascinating because I knew absolutely nothing about this series. I knew nothing about the story it's based on. It's based on a book, I think, but which I've never heard of. I had no idea that the Chippendales stripper troupe had such an interesting origin story. So, as I said, Kamal Nanjiani is the real big name in here. He plays Soman Steve Banerjee. He is an Indian immigrant to the United States who works for years at a petrol station, saving like 80 to 90% of his income over that time, initially with a view to opening his own petrol station or series of petrol stations as a business. He's left his family back home in India to do that. However, he idolizes high society in the United States. He idolizes people like Hugh Hefner in society. Remember before Playboy kind of got this idea for being sleazy? It kind of back in the 70s. I mean, I don't know because I wasn't alive, but really well, briefly. But you know, you kind of had this idea of, you know, being kind of classy men in smoking jackets sitting around playing, you know, backgammon and talking to, you know, famous writers and stuff like that. That kind of era of Hugh Hefner. So he looks up to him, and he decides, rather, when he actually saves enough money, he's not going to actually open a petrol station. He decides to open a club. Initially, a backgammon club, because he thinks that's classy. All his initial business ideas are spectacular failures until he happens upon the idea of opening a male strip club. So it's in a strip club where men are strippers as opposed to women. And that is where he hits upon his big idea. And it turns out to be incredibly successful. The central conflict in the series comes from the conflict between Simon, or Steve, and his the man he hires as his choreographer, Nick DeNoia. Nick is a former television choreographer who's won Emmys for his work and helps sort of really elevate the initial Chippendales from being a bunch of schlubs with muscles struggling to take their jeans off in front of drunk women to more of a show that, you know, I mean, I don't know, you and I obviously aficionados when it comes to male strip reviews.
Of course,
it's you know, that was what our initial podcast was about. We were just talking about the best male strip reviews going around, but it just didn't take off in the same way as the
Stripping the Strippers. If anyone wants to look into it, ladies,
go back into the archives for that one. Might be a bit hard to find, but you know, he actually inputs real choreography and sort of, you know, the art of dance into what these strippers are doing, and that kind of really elevates the show and sort of takes them to another level of popularity. Whereas, you know, people were starting to get bored with their crap, their crap dance moves before this. But these two do not get along. They do not see eye to eye, and it's the conflict between these two men and what they should do with this this idea, where it should go next. Steve is a real control freak who kind of resents having to listen to someone like Nick, and Nick's a coked out weirdo who really doesn't care for Simon either. So it's kind of one of those frenemy type relationships where they're great together, but they just can't stay together because they just don't get along. It's really, really entertaining. You can see with the trailer running here, it goes some crazy places later on in the series, I think, from what the trailer shows me. But it's a ridiculously entertaining true story. Kamal Nanjiani is a sensational actor. Like, I enjoy everything he is in. I even enjoyed him in The Eternals, which is hard because The Eternals was boring as batshit. He was far and away the most interesting character in that film. And they gave him virtually no screen time. And he got all jacked for that too.
Yeah,
and they just did nothing with him. But he really owns his show. This is his show. And he really occupies that role of Simon Banerjee, and he's owning it. And the relationship between him and Nick is fascinating. Nick is played by Murray Bartlett, an actor I am not instantly familiar with. Apparently his more recent work has been in The White Lotus, which I believe is quite a popular television program, which I haven't caught yet, but I hear it's quite good. The only other names you'll sort of notice in here, Juliette Lewis pops up as Denise, who is Nick's sort of girlfriend. Nick's gay, so not really a girlfriend. But she's Denise. I like Juliette Lewis. She's aging gracelessly and loving it. She does a sensation. I mean, she's a great actor. And Anna Lee Ashford is a name no one will probably know. But if, like me, you look at that face and go, I know her from shit. Again, if early in the year, or was it last year, we talked about American Crime Story, the Bill Clinton one, where anyway, she played Paula Jones.
Okay.
So apparently no one watched that series, so it's probably just me who recognized that. It's quite explicit. It's quite violent in parts. So if you're like, oh, it's on Disney Plus, I'll sit the kids down in front of it after Christmas dinner. The fact it was about male strippers didn't give it away that this isn't for kids. This is just your weekly reminder that it's not for kids. But it's sort of, Studio 54 meets Showgirls. So it's
Okay.
but not as crap a show. It's a lot of fun. Really digging it. The only downside I'd say is the most recent episode did that thing that Disney does sometimes, where it goes, "Oh, that's right. We have to put 21st century politics into this." And they don't do it too badly, but they do drop a whole race element straight into the middle of the last episode, and you're like, "Oh, that came out of nowhere." And it makes sense in the sense that he's a brown man in 1980s America, and no doubt they would have faced all sorts of racism around the place. But it's just it sort of came out of nowhere. Hasn't been, like you're in 4 episodes in, and in the 4th episode they introduce this whole new story element or factor in the story. You're like, oh, well, we haven't talked about that before. That's not really. I mean, surely it's real, and that makes sense, but maybe you should have been dropping hints. I mean, signposting that a little bit better.
Sorry, Auntie Patrice has always just been off camera. It's not my fault you didn't see
it. Exactly. So they're introducing new characters. The episode of The Simpsons. Oh, hey, Roy. But anyway, that's a very minor complaint. It's highly entertaining, and I strongly recommend it. I'm very much hoping they stick the landing on this. The fact that it's based on a real story and a book, and they're not looking to set up a season 2. That bodes well for me.
Good. Okay.
Moving on. Yes. The other show, Fleischman is in Trouble, is a new show also found on Disney Plus. It's a Hulu show in the States, I think. If you are one of our many legions of American friends. This stars Jesse Eisenberg and Claire Danes and Lizzie Kaplan, Adam Brody, the big names you'll notice in this one. Toby Fleischman knew what to expect when he and his wife of almost 15 years separated. Weekends and every other holiday with the kids. Some residual business, the occasional moment of tension in the co-parenting negotiations. So that's actually a really bad synopsis. This is based on a book as well. I have a book somewhere. I will get around to reading it at some point. Essentially, this is a show about divorce, about the male experience, largely so far. Again, I am 5 episodes into a series of, I think it's 8 or 9 episodes. Let me just check here. Yes, so 8 episodes. I mean, 5 episodes in, so again, it could fuck it up again.
Yeah, what?
Who's listening? Somebody's listening. They're listening.
Sorry. Siri just decided to start listening.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
That's another robot that we've got listening to us.
In fairness, I would listen to us as well. Where was I talking about Fleischman's in Trouble before? That completely threw me off. So this is written up based on a book. It's about so far, it is about the male experience of divorce, written by a female author. And that's really quite interesting in that you don't see a whole lot of that. So the book is written by Taffy Brodesser Ackner. That's a hell of a name.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get around with a name like Taffy. G'day. Hi, I'm Bob. Oh, hi, I'm Taffy. Okay. Taffy wrote the novel, and she also wrote and created it for television. Most of it was written by her. Okay. So it's interesting that she wrote the book and also did the adaptation to television. Jesse Eisenberg is a doctor, a liver specialist. His wife, now ex-wife, is played by Claire Danes, who is a successful theatre agent. And they, at the start of the show, are divorced. It's Claire Danes' a character. Rachel is sort of shown as being kind of flighty and cold. The central drama of the story is she drops the kids off at Toby's house for his weekend visit and never turns up to pick them up again.
Okay.
Now, initially, you might be thinking this is doing a little bit Book of Henry. Is this going to turn from a quirky divorce drama into a whodunit thriller? it is not. He finds out his wife isn't missing. She is actually in New York, where the show is set. But she's just not come to pick the kids up, and not returning any of his calls, and not returning his emails, and not picking the kids up.
Wow.
And he has to figure out sort of how to deal with this situation. And what's fascinating is his journey through the different emotions that he is experiencing as part of his divorce. Like, I mean, as someone who is divorced, though, I think it's really unfair to say I'm divorced. I was barely ever married. Just a little bit married. Just a
marriage.
Just a wife-in marriage. It was 7-8 months. So, it doesn't really count. And it was in Vegas. I should have just had it annulled. Like Brittany. But, I think it's it's a very common thing these days. But divorce is not one thing. A relationship ending is not one experience. It is a number of experiences over a period of time. In fact, I guess it's an experience that never really ends. It's just sort of fades a little bit, if that makes sense. I'm telling people stuff I already know. But what's fascinating about him is that we see him go through the different stages of dealing with the end of his relationship. It's almost like he expected to walk away from the relationship and that's it. It's done. I don't have to deal with this anymore, and I don't have to deal with the emotions or the problems anymore. But there's a great line from a character who is someone he's sleeping with post the marriage, who says, "Being divorced doesn't make you any less married," which I found a really interesting line. Yeah. And so we see him experiencing the freedom of, coming out of a long-term marriage and finding dating apps are a thing now, and sexual partners, especially in a big city like New York, are not difficult to find for an attractive and a successful man like him. But also, finding out that his wife may potentially be seeing somebody else or seeing somebody he actually knows, and sort of going through that process of dealing with the idea of your partner, moving on from you. And this might make it sound tedious or boring. It's really not. It's very entertainingly done. The story is actually narrated by Lizzie Kaplan.
Okay.
Lizzie Kaplan plays Libby Epstein, who is Toby's childhood friend, who he reconnects with after the end of his marriage because his wife she didn't like his wife. So Lizzie and Adam are his friends from school. He reconnects with both of them. So Adam Brody plays Seth Morris. I'll get his actual character's name. That'd be better. They didn't like Rachel, and Rachel didn't like them. So I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where your partner doesn't like your friends, but that's a rather awkward one to live with. So, they reconnect, and now Lizzie is sort of, as I said, narrating his story at the same time as talking about her own. So this is a really, really wonderful show. I think I've enjoyed this show probably as much as anything I can remember in the last 6 months or so. If you're somebody who's been through a relationship breakdown, which is most people, especially a long-term one, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. And it's not just male-centric going, women suck. Women, what do you do with them? It's fascinating that the author is sort of trying to imagine what the world looks like through the eyes of a divorced man. At the same time as I think kind of telling a little bit of her story through Lizzie Kaplan's character, who is, almost envious of the freedom that Toby has because she's passing her husband on the downside of a marriage herself. Again, not for children. In case you looked at this and thought, "Oh, a divorce drama." That'll keep the kids entertained.
They're going to learn sooner or later.
Reality, huh? Not for children. It is a TV MA rating, whatever that means, but I wouldn't sit your kids in front of this. They're not going to like it. But I'm really enjoying it. I think this is a really wonderful TV show.
Okay. Cool. Very good. All right. Well, I am going to take us from the sublime to the supernatural. I am going to talk about Spirited, ladies and gentlemen. That's right.
Not Spirited Away?
No,
Spirited.
this is Spirited. This is the Apple TV, Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds TV extravaganza. And it is essentially a musical retelling of the Chris Carroll story. And as you can see in the trailer, you've got the Ghost of Christmas Past, Christmas Present, and Christmas Yet to Come. Ryan Reynolds is the one who is being haunted, as the trailer makes out here. But it has a couple of twists. So first and foremost is it's essentially there's a spiritual, a spirit-based consortium of ghosts that work in the afterlife triad. Every year they will redeem a soul, one soul 1 year. In one night they will spend a whole year mapping out their whole plan, trying to find out the kicker moment in a life, or the few kicker moments to be able to convert someone to being a good person, a la Ebenezer Scrooge. And that tale is old as time. And this one kind of does it slightly differently, because it's not necessarily from the point of the Ebenezer Scrooge character, which is Ryan Reynolds' character. I'm just going to bring up the listing now. Spirited.
Ryan plays Clint Briggs.
Clint Briggs.
Yeah.
And he is in the spirit, sort of like the Christmas Past Present group, considered an unredeemable. And there's only ever been one other unredeemable, and he was redeemed. And through the course of the story, we find out that Will Ferrell's character, who plays someone, just his name is Present, was that unredeemable in a previous life. And so Will Ferrell kind of bonds with this Clint, because Will Ferrell is at a point where he should be taking and the retirement package for these guys is they get to live out their last years back on Earth, living as a human and just enjoying it and hopefully being a good person for however long they have left. The story kind of puts a twist on it, because Clint is not entirely an asshole. He is an asshole, but at the same time, he's also, there's a lot of rationale to his character, and it's got a touch of Bill Murray's Scrooged in there.
That's what you want.
Yes. It doesn't go far enough. It's a bit too saccharine sweet for its own good. And by the end, the reveal and revelations and twists that happen, yes, there are twists in Christmas Carol-based story. It could have done something way more interesting with its final kind of, but it decided to go the happy ending, which is very frustrating. It would have been a far more interesting piece. The musical elements in it are fine, I guess. They're annoying. They are bumpy, and they'll get into you in the moment. You'll start enjoying it. Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds are both charming, enjoyable actors overall, but they're never given the opportunity to go fully off the reins. And for Will Ferrell, especially after the last few movies that he's been in, it's not a bad thing to keep him on a bit of a leash. But Ryan Reynolds does feel like he's kind of phoning this one in somewhat. Octavia Spencer,
again, much like his more recent work, a lot of it's felt phoned in.
Yes. He's a tired man. He needs some time off, and he's taken some time off since filming this, apparently. Octavia Spencer is the main female performer in this, and she is charming, but heavily underused. Then the only other kind of work from someone else in it that I am glad to hear is the voice of Tracy Morgan. He plays the voice of the Ghost of Yet to Come. And so you never face, and you only ever hear his voice when he's not haunting, when he's in the office, because basically he suffers from stage fright and he can't talk when he's trying to haunt someone. So he ends up just doing this ominous pointing, and it's actually kind of a funny quirk. And so like every time it's like, oh man, this year I want to say something. I want a catchphrase or something like that. It's like, you know what happens when you try and talk? Nothing. It's like, that's actually funny. But beyond that, it's a very paint by numbers rom-com, effectively, with the musical element to it. It's not the worst movie that I've seen, but I have seen a lot of shit for this show. So
we saw Death Machine.
Yes, so it's not. That's not particularly saving grace. And
would you say is it the kind of thing you would show to kids, for example?
I don't know, because there's elements of it where it's like comedy of it is very, very light, and there's a song and dance routine you can in the trailer. It's the last bit at the end. There's a body that kind of falls from the sky, and they're all in kind of Victorian era stuff. It's called Good Afternoon. And from the period of time, saying good afternoon to someone is the equivalent of saying fuck off cunt. And it's this whole dance routine that Ryan Reynolds' character actually starts as a way of deflecting from him back onto Will Ferrell's character. And it's actually kind of a fun song. But at the same time, it's like, this isn't as good as Muppets Christmas Carol, and it's not as good as Scrooged. So if you want a family fun movie that is whole family about Christmas Carol, Muppets Christmas Carol. If you want something that's a bit more sardonic and I don't like Christmas, you go Scrooged. There are just better movies out there that do everything this is trying to do, but do it better. This tries to do a bit too much in one movie, I think.
Just for those who have children, Common Sense Media says 13 plus.
Ah, there you go. There you go. I think that's probably fair. Yeah, I'd say so. Why not?
But, I mean, I guess if you really, really like the actors involved, or you really like
TV, if you've got Apple TV, it's something to watch. It's definitely something you just put in the background and you ignore it, and kids can enjoy it as much as they want. There's almost certainly going to be an announcement coming out soon that there's going to be a stage play version of it, because probably what it should have been. But it's, whatever. But that's kind of what I have to say on Spirited.
I think it's probably about what I expected. I mean, I don't know. You look at this and go, oh, yeah, I want to watch that. No, it looks like crap. But it's kind of crap. I mean, very rarely does a Christmas film come out that's actually had some thought put into it.
Exactly. It takes a lot of time and effort to actually put something in there that is going to be worthy. And it's like Christmas music, ladies and gentlemen. Stop trying to make new Christmas songs. They just don't fucking work. Just stick to the originals. We know them. We ignore them. When you've got people like Lady Gaga 13, 14 years ago came out with a Christmas song that was just fucking awful. Just stop. When you've got these rich, pretty boys singing like the Little Drummer Boy, they're like, no, just don't. Just don't. When Cliff Richard's Christmas song is the best song on a Christmas soundtrack, no, you've got fucking problems, ladies and gentlemen. But never mind. Moving on.
Rant over. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Rant over about Christmas music for now. You just wait until next week. No, I want to finish up talking about another blast from the past turned into a TV show. Willow, ladies and gentlemen. Willow. This is...
I could believe that Michelle had never seen the original.
You know what?
How did this...
I can kind of believe that because I've spoken to a lot of people that didn't really know anything about Willow, which is
wow,
considering who created Willow. It was like a love child of some of the most legendary film creators of the 80s.
This was kind of a steak knives in Disney's acquiring of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who do not know, Willow is a fantasy TV series based on one of the legendary movies from the 80s, also called Willow. And this has a lot of the reprising roles. You've got Warwick Davis coming back as the titular Willow. You have got, hang on, I'm going to bring up the proper cast list right now.
What's the Val Kilmer's ex-wife, Joanne Whaley?
That's it. Yes, thank you. That was the name I was trying to get. And they are paired up with a host of fresh young talent that we have actually already seen quite a bit of on Disney-associated products. For example, Erin Kellyman was in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
And she was in Solo.
Yes, she was.
And she was very annoying in both of those things.
Yes, and she's kind of annoying in this one. Tony Revolari, he plays Flash Thompson in the new Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland. He's generally been annoying in all the things that he's in, and he's less annoying than normal in this one. But this show follows on after the events of the movie, where Elora Danan, the baby that is prophesied to save the world in the movie, has grown up, and there's a bit of a rift between Willow and the worlds of the realms of man, shall we say, about what was supposed to happen. But I'll tell you something. The people that are creating this show give a fuck about the source material, because they have managed to capture a lot of the essence of the show. Particularly, we've got two people playing the kids, the twin kids. There is Ruby Cruz, who plays Kit, and then her twin brother, Dempsey Burke, who plays Eric. They are the son and daughter of Matt Madigan, Val Kilmer's character from the first one. And they have very much used the unusual kind of character that Matt Madigan was in a fantasy movie of the time, to set the theme and style of this show. Because he was kind of like cavalier, almost surfer dude sort of thing. When
he was kind of the Han Solo Aragorn character.
Yeah, but where Aragorn is very forthright and everything like that, Han Solo and Indiana Jones is sort of like, I'm gonna accidentally fuck up my way through this sequence and actually be kind of good. And they've kind of used that as a launching point of, you know what, we're going to do fantasy movies and fantasy storytelling in a slightly different way. They don't always get it right, but they're trying something different, which I definitely appreciate, considering the amount of fantasy shows that we are getting at the moment. I'm looking at you, Rings of Power and The Wheel of Time, and there's so many animated ones on Netflix, like there's the Dragon Age animated one and stuff like that. It's nice to have something a little bit different in there. Production-wise, it looks great. And as a bit of a fan of Conan the Barbarian and Solomon Kane books and movies that we've had, This kind of sits in amongst that kind of world a little bit. The world is a horrible, cruel, yucky place, and people wear badass armor, have stupid weapons that don't work in the real world but are just cool, and so it's good to see them on the screen. And there's heart, but also comedy and a little bit of brevity to everything about it that is incredibly refreshing. Its first 2 episodes were great. I think we're up to episode 4 now, of 8. Yes. Episode 5 is coming out next week. So yeah, 4 episodes released so far. And it's overall doing well. I would give this like maybe 7.5 or 8 out of 10.
It's interesting. The IMDb rating is a 5.3, and yours is the first positive thing I've heard said about it.
Yeah. There's a lot that's kind of going wrong, but the other thing that kind of just endears it to me a little bit is there was a Robin Hood TV series with Ray Winston that was awful growing up. It was awful. It was the lowest of low budget. They were literally filming in Sherwood Forest, and it was like, oh, hey, we need swords, we need armor. No one's making any good, so we'll just do the best with what we've got. This kind of has that homemade kind of feel to it.
It has no. Disney Plus is a giant multi-billion-dollar corporation.
I know, but there's something. It's just it keeps on every now and then, just hopping across the line to go from it's moderately okay, inoffensive stuff to this is bad but funny, and then it just hops back again every now and then. It just weird moments. There's no rhyme or reason to why they're doing or when they're doing it, if they're doing it intentionally. It's just suddenly you're looking at it and going, this is like original Doctor Who cheese. Oh, and we're back. What was that? I don't know. What was that? Why are you doing that? Okay. It's a bizarre quirk of the show that... And I'll say the worst thing for the show so far is Warwick Davis's acting.
I've heard that said. The show actually... I've heard some reviews that talk about how the younger cast is actually pretty decent and an interesting addition to the lore and the mythology, but it's Warwick Davis who is actually kind of holding this back.
Yeah, because it's this delivery of some of his lines that it sounds like he's literally reading them off a screen prompt, and it's not what you expect when you think of Warwick Davis. And I don't know why or how they kind of looked at it as went, yep, that fits. That's perfect. It's odd. But I'm still invested. I'm still engaged. I like the sort of like, I'm a sucker for fantasy. We'll happily admit that. It's a shame. Apparently they wanted to get Val Kilmer involved, but
he's not well. He's not well.
His illness was very much something that he was unable to do. But because it is all owned by Disney, they are able to bring in footage of the original movie. So we have these occasional little shots of Mad Madigan and what was the evil queen's name in it?
I really don't remember. It's a long time since I saw it.
Badass motherfucker. They've got someone in there who, so like in the story, was Mad Madigan's like servant or
Queen Bavmorda. Is that her?
Queen Bavmorda, yes. Played by Amir Chandra Patel. He plays Thraxus Borman. They're definitely using him as a bit of a surrogate for Val Kilmer's Mad Madigan, but he's not as good of an actor as Val Kilmer, and so far he's not really been given the opportunity to try and be his own character yet. but they're juggling a lot of balls right now. I think they may be trying to do a bit too much world building and introduction in the first season, or I don't know if this is going to be a season. I don't know if it's a limited series, but I think that if they do keep it going, they can drop Willow and just keep going because they're developing an interesting world. And that's it. But I'm enjoying it so far, which is good. Which is
well, I'm glad you are.
Plus.
You're the one.
Hey, I will stand up for the weird person, the weird thing. Just do it because that's me.
You know, it's interesting that I remember when the film came out, it wasn't terribly successful, the original. No, it wasn't like a smash hit. It was kind of one of those films that people have discovered on video years later.
Yeah, it was a cult movie like Krull.
Krull's another weird one for the 80s.
Yeah.
I want to touch on... have you got anything else you wanted to talk about before? I got one more thing I thought we could touch on before we...
Sure, we can absolutely touch on other things. I realized that there were a couple of other things that I've watched this week, but I can talk about them next week.
You just touched on it quickly. Now, really, maybe let's try and give us 10 minutes on this because you and I are going to go on about this. But you mentioned a name in that little rant about Willow.
Oh, yeah.
And that name was Indiana Jones. There was some Indiana Jones news last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and now I know the fans love it when we just shit on Disney. So let's do that. Apparently, they are making... a fourth Indiana Jones film?
Yeah.
I think it was a fan film made in the 2000s, which some consider a fourth film, but I mean, I'm not sure.
I don't think... I certainly don't consider it canon because I don't think anyone does. So, yeah, the fourth movie coming out next year.
And we got a bit of a teaser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did.
Sorry, this is completely unannounced. I just dropped this on George's head, so he doesn't have a trailer ready to go. So don't blame him. It's me for not being on it. It just popped into my head. Look, this is not something I think you and I have been looking forward to. I think they're done. They should have maybe stopped at 3. Though I was curious to see what they were going to do. And I was pretty sure, and I remain pretty sure they're going to fuck it up because they fucked up Star Wars. They're busy fucking up Marvel.
Here we go.
Why would this be any different?
Yeah.
And the indications so far are they're going to fuck it up.
Yep.
And what am I basing it off? The title of this film, The Dial of Destiny.
That sounds like
a stupid
sequel to National Treasure.
Yes, or something like one of those sequels you didn't know existed, like S. Darko or American Psycho 2.
It actually sounds more like an unused title for an Indiana Jones video game.
The thing is, there was an Indiana Jones video game in the 90s. It was an Atlantis-based one. I don't remember the exact which apparently I didn't play, but people rave about it to this day as having a great story. And finding Atlantis is the kind of thing Indy would do, right? That'd be cool. I don't know why, but obviously we don't know what this film's about yet. The rumors are it has a time travel element. The Dial of Destiny has made some people feel like that is more likely now than not. It looks like it features Nazis again.
Yep. We've got Mads Mikkelsen in Nazi mode, apparently.
Now, Mads is a great villain. It also features, you can see in the trailer here that George is playing Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And this scene, we're having a reverse of the famous indie gun versus sword scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I'm like, okay, I understood that reference. Don't really... I haven't seen the final product yet. Okay, I get it, but I don't like it. I don't like anything about this. There is nothing in this trailer that says that builds excitement for me. What are your impressions?
My impressions are this is entirely unnecessary. That is going to be a lot of serving the fans, like the
Fan service, nods and winks to the audience.
Sulla is back. The fact that there's a line in the trailer about when him and Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character there is like, is this your daughter? Is it like my goddaughter or something like that? I think she's probably going to be what's his face? Oh God, the English professor in The Last Crusade. It's like the pen's mightier than the sword. I think it's going to be his daughter or something like that, or there's going to be some connection there. Apparently, they're using de-aging technology for some younger Indiana Jones stuff. I just I don't want this. I want them to stop.
I want to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying there aren't more stories that could be told in this universe. Do you remember in the 90s there was that Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show? That was all right.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting idea. That would have been a bold choice by Disney.
Yeah.
To go out and cast a 20-year-old as a young Indiana Jones, coming up in the world. Sorry?
Tom Holland.
Tom's busy. I don't know. Cody Smith-McPhee. I don't care who, but Austin fucking Butler. The guy can act his ass off. The guy was amazing in Elvis. He would make a great young Indy, I think. You have every young actor in Hollywood lining up for it, sure.
Yeah.
And, I'd be happy with giving that a go. I mean, I still don't think Disney would do it very well because they haven't done anything particularly well in their Lucasfilm efforts lately. But, I mean, that might be at least open up the opportunity a little bit more for interesting ideas. And you could go back and you could deal with Nazis directly because he's 19, he's 20, it's the 30s,
Yeah.
The Nazis are a thing. Why are they fighting Nazis again?
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about the fan film from 2008 is, twofold. One, we brought back, what's her name from the first film?
Marion Ravenwood.
Marion Raven.
I would just like to stop and just look at this moment. Why have they got the Millennium Falcon in?
And no, that's what I'm thinking. The same thing. It's obviously a bomber of some description, but
it's going through a tear in time.
They're doing the Kessel Run, obviously.
This is how he gets it. He just jumps into another franchise. That's how he makes the distance shorter.
That's why he hit it in 12 parsecs or whatever it was. And they tried a new villain in Crystal Skull.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Soviets, I guess they're not Nazis. They're not quite as menacing and it was cool. But look, they made fucking how many Bond films where the Soviets were the bad guys?
Mm-hmm.
Soviets make fine bad guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, they wasted Cate Blanchett in that film. And of course, the idea to cast Shia LaBeouf as we all thought was just going to be, him handing the hat to his mutt. Obviously, that didn't really work out for Shia for obvious reasons. So very interesting ideas at play in that film, but obviously the execution was poor, to say the least. It's just apparently I've seen stories kicking around that like Harrison Ford's come out and said he's not handing the torch over in this film.
Yeah, he's
so what the fuck is it?
Bluntly kind of said, "Oh, I am Indiana Jones." It's like, no. Let's put it this way: you were Indiana Jones, then you stopped caring about acting. And Indiana Jones died. That's okay.
He's 80.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford. Now, look, maybe it'll be great. But, I really don't hold out a great deal of hope about that.
Yeah.
I don't see how it could be. He looked old and frailish in Crystal Skull, and that was 14 years ago. It looked ridiculous. Him doing action scenes 14 years ago. How is it going to look now? Your special effects can't change that. No. Phoebe Waller-Bridge might be the greatest screenwriter she wrote this as well, or co-wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
She might be the greatest screenwriter known to man, but I don't see how that makes a difference here. And just the Dial of Destiny. Who the fuck is Disney for? Yeah, that sounds cool. It sounds stupid.
Sells, man.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Temple of Doom, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Last Crusade. None of those were alliteration. Look, I know this is a Gen X rant here because we grew up on this film, but and James Mangold is a fine filmmaker. Man, who's directing this, of course, he made Logan.
Yes. Yeah.
And Free Tender Humor.
Yep.
And Ford versus Ferrari. And Walk the Line. The guy seriously knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he's not a miracle worker.
I do like the fact that they have got new director in to do this, because Steven Spielberg is just off the reservation doing self-referential movies now. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to ignore you, Steven. You go over to the filmmakers' home for old people, please. I don't get why. No, I get why they keep on bringing these franchises in, because it's guaranteed money coming in, etc., etc. But everyone bullshits the money anyway. The story's coming out about Black Adam, whether it's going to be profitable or not. It's not going to be profitable. Sorry, Rock, you've had a flop. Just accept it. Everyone will get one eventually. Just try something different, please. Something new, something different.
Don't hold your breath.
No.
Well, I mean, also, just in closing, I'd like to point out that James Mangold also directed one of our Chain movies this year. And that was, of course, the wonderful Kate Leopold. So all one can hope, the only hope that Indy 5 has, is the inclusion of a young, plucky advertising executive at some point in the plot.
Could Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character be
a plucky advertising executive in the 30s? I don't know. Wow. And of course, that had a time travel plot, so he can handle a time travel element.
See, that was just his test run for Dial of Destiny.
Everybody thought, his work on Logan, his work on Ford versus Ferrari, we got him this job.
Kate Leopold, folks.
Kate and Leopold. They looked at Kate and Leopold and said, can he handle a plucky young advertising executive? Can he do time travel? The answer is yes. You've got the job.
Can he handle a young Harrison Ford? Because everyone knows that Hugh Jackman was the heir apparent for Harrison Ford with X-Men and with what was the other thing that he was in? Oh, he tried to do Van Helsing. Yeah, everyone thought, oh, is he going to be the new Harrison Ford?
I don't think Harrison Ford did anywhere near as many musicals as Hugh does. I would love to have seen Harrison Ford in The Greatest Showman. Just sort of something like I don't know any of the songs from that show. Sorry.
Neither do I.
I have seen it, but I don't remember any of the songs. I'm sorry.
Things out.
Anyway, that's 10 minutes, 13 minutes on Dial of Destiny. It looks like it sucks. It's gonna suck, but we're gonna see it anyway. So we are suckers.
Yep, we are suckers. We are schmucks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this week's show. Episode 167 is in the bag. We are done. We talked about The Book of Henry, our Chain movie of the week. We have postponed our Chain for a moment to do the Christmas specials of Eyes Wide Shut and Invasion USA. Travis talked about Chippendales and Fleischman is in Trouble on Disney+. I had a bit of a roundup of God of War and my thoughts on that. The Peripheral, then finished up with Spirited Away and Willow. And then, of course, we had our little conversation about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. What a show. Next week,
it's been busy.
It's gonna be an interesting one. We've got Eyes Wide Shut and Invasion USA. I will be talking about 2 Netflix movies. 1, Troll. 2, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Also a Christmas movie.
Also a Christmas movie and a musical, I think.
So wear your festive hats, people, when you're watching like me.
Mm-hmm.
My headphones are falling off, but I can jingle with the best of them.
It's jiggling.
This is a $5 purchase that is relevant for 2 weeks of the year. Thank you, people. I know how to manage my money very well. Thanks to anyone who's decided to watch the live stream at some point.
Thank you very much.
If you've downloaded the podcast, thank you. Sorry about the gaps of silence. We had some audio troubles, but you'll forgive us because if you listen to the show, you know what we're about.
Exactly. But thank you very much. As Travis said, you can rewatch us on twitch.tv/The Fried Brain. You can go to youtube.com/Armchair Producers, facebook.com/Fried Brain Productions. You can listen to us on all good podcasting services, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts as well, I think now. Don't forget, you can support us by going to twitch.tv/The Fried Brain and subscribing. That really helps us with getting out to more people. Leave reviews. And if you have any recommendations on things that you think we should watch, then let us know. We want to hear them. We want to watch them. Because it's hard trying to find good movies to watch. There aren't any out there at the moment. Oh, God.
The amount of movies I could talk about in this show, but I don't because I gave up after 40 minutes of watching it. It's disturbing.
The other nomination for Christmas movie that is not a Christmas movie, The Addams Family. It opens with them singing Christmas carols. It qualifies as a Christmas movie.
Yeah, we could have gone with Batman Returns, but I wouldn't do that to you.
No. Those are easy pickings. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.